Good morning, class, and welcome to our last and final week of online learning. I don't know about you, but I am excited that we can put this to rest, and I really hope that I can see you guys back in the school building in the fall. This will be our last video, our last topic for this week, and we are going to talk about factoring trinomials. So, as we've learned about polynomials, trinomials is a special type. The keyword tri, meaning that there are three pieces to this trinomial. So you will notice that we have ax squared plus bx plus c. And there are a few steps to this process. And today I'm going to teach you this little X method to help you. Those of you that are really good with your times tables, you may not need to use this little X method every time, but I think it's helpful for a lot of us to figure out how we should factor each one of these. So you'll notice every time that this is set up in a way where you have two sets of parentheses, and in this case we're using the letter X as our variable for all of them. I consider this to be a double bubble step. I'm setting up two sets of bubbles, two sets of parentheses, and this X, or whatever variable it may be, will go first in each parenthesis. The rest of it has to do with the two factors that will get us B and C. So you'll notice the steps here. Step number 1 says, is A equal to 1? If not, factor out a GCF. Well, in this case, there are very few, if any, where we are going to have to factor out a GCF. I am just going to focus on the basics, so we're not going to really have to worry about step 1 for what we're talking about this week. Step 2 is the X factor, and this is the key part to factoring these expressions. The X factor, we have to find two numbers that multiply to give us C and add to give us B. These answers, these two numbers, we will put as the second term in the parentheses, okay? And one way that we can check our work is that we can FOIL. We can FOIL back what we factor out, and hopefully, if we did it correctly, we would get back to the initial problem that we started with. So as I look at some of these questions, if we look at the first one, B is 12. The B number should be placed at the bottom, and the C number should be placed at the top of your X. So B in this case is 12, and C in this case is 27. Okay, so we need to find factors of 27. Factors of 27 that add to give us 12. I have provided a reference sheet for you. So if you look and open up that reference sheet while you are completing this, it helps greatly. If you come here, and in yours it's listed as factoring reference sheet, I want to find that factor C. I want to find 27. And in this case, right here is 27. Oops. I want to find a pair of factors of 27 that add to give me 12. Well, there's only two options. You have 1 and 27, and you have 3 and 9. If you look at those pairs, the only two numbers that add to give me 12 would be 3 plus 9. So when I fill this in to my chart, and finding my X factors, I am going to fill in a positive 3 and a positive 9, and if I would add those together, I would get a positive 12. Also, if I multiply positive 3 by positive 9, I get a positive 27. So positive 3 and positive 9 are the two numbers that we would fill in to this X factor. Looking down at the next problem, you'll notice that the signs change. We now have a positive 20 as our C value and a negative 9 as our b value. Okay, so think about when you're multiplying. If you multiply two negative numbers together, it will still result in a positive answer. And if you add two negative numbers together, you would get a negative result. That's what this little chart here is referring to. When you multiply two negatives, you will get a positive. Right here at the top is what I'm talking about. So if I go back to my chart, I want to find the number 20. Okay, the number 20, we have three options to pick from. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, or 4 and 5. Well, if I was going to add these numbers together, the only pair that would give us 9 would be 4 and 5. So when I come back to fill in my X chart, I will fill in a negative 4 and a negative 5. All right. I'm using two negative numbers because I want them to add to give me a negative 9. So negative 4 plus negative 5 is negative 9. Also, negative 4 times negative 5 is a positive 20. As you're filling this in, what you would notice is that if I were to FOIL this expression back, x times x is x squared, x times negative 5 is negative 5x, negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. If I combine my like terms in the middle, I get x squared minus 9x plus 20. That is exactly what we started with. And that's the process of factoring, breaking this polynomial back into a product of factors. Okay, moving on to the next one. In this case, we have negative 63 as our c value and negative 2 as our b value. So we need to find numbers that multiply to give us negative 63. What this means is one of these factors will be positive, one of these factors will be negative. These two numbers have to have opposite signs in order to multiply to give us a negative answer. So if I go back to my factoring chart, I want to find 63, the c value. So here is my 63. I have three options: 1 and 63, 3 and 21, 7 and 9. The numbers need to add together to give me a negative 2. Well, I don't necessarily see something that will add to give me 2. However, if you're thinking we have opposite signs, the numbers really are going to subtract to give us 2. So in this case, 7 and 9 would be the pair that when I subtract them, I will get the 2. Okay, so when I come back to the trinomial chart and I fill in 7 and 9, I want to get negative 2 as the result when I add these two things together. So in order to do that, the 9, the larger number, will have to have the negative sign, and the smaller number will have the positive sign. So 7 times negative 9 will give me negative 63. 7 plus negative 9 will give me negative 2. These are the two factors that I will need to fill in to my trinomial. Okay, our last example here, we have negative 8 as our c value and positive 2 as our b value. So we are going to look for numbers that multiply to give us negative 8 and add together to give us a positive 2. If I come over to my factor chart, I am looking for the number 8. So 8's a pretty simple one. You only have two options. We have 1 and 8 and we have 2 and 4. Well, again, we had a negative number, so the signs really are going to be opposite. We're going to have to subtract to get 2. In this case, 2 and 4. If I was to subtract 2 and 4, I would get the 2 that I want in my final answer. So, when I come back to my chart, I'm going to fill in 2 and 4. Now it's just a matter of deciding on our signs. We want a positive 2. So to keep that 2 positive, my larger number is going to need the positive sign with it, and 2 is going to need the negative sign. So positive 4 and negative 2, when I multiply them, I get negative 8. When I add them together, I get positive 2. So those will be the factors that I will fill in to my parentheses. So that was pretty well guided for you. If you come over to the chart here, I have a few additional examples that I want you to try on your own. So I'm going to go through the first one with you, and then I'll leave the rest of this for you to finish and turn in on your own when I am done. So the first thing that you can do in each one of these problems is double bubble. You can set up your set of parentheses for each one. Then you can make your X chart. All right, in this X chart, you can fill in your C at the top. You can fill in your B at the bottom. And you want to think about 2 numbers that multiply to give you 28 and add to give you 11. If you're not sure, again, use the chart that I have provided. Find the number 28. Well, I see one pair that adds to give me 11. That would be 4 and 7. So when I come over here, I am going to fill in a positive 4 and a positive 7. Those will be the values that would add to give me a positive 11 and multiply to give me a positive 28. So again, make sure you are including these signs as you are figuring out the signs with each one of your factors. If you are good at your multiplication tables, you don't necessarily have to make this little X chart every time. That is just a tool to help you in terms of the factoring process. Again, if you look at this second problem, if I were to set up my 2 parentheses, I need factors of 4 that add to give me 4. So 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. Well, 2 plus 2 would be the only pair that adds to give me 4. So if I wanted to jump right to the final answer in x plus 2 times x plus 2, I could definitely do that as well without drawing this little x table. The x factor chart is just to help figure out the proper signs for each one of these factors. As always, if you have questions, please reach out to me. And again, thank you all who have continued to work through this time, and we will see you hopefully back in the school building in the fall.